Josh Horneman, welcome to the Growth Concept, brother. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers, bro. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me, man.
So do I know burping on this podcast. I think we should start off on how we met, because that's interesting. And a lot of people nowadays underestimate the power of LinkedIn and the online space. I'll let you answer this. How did we meet, Josh?
Yeah, cool. You burping. I've known Shill, one of your past guests, for quite some time. And I literally saw a thing pop up where he'd been tagged on there and you guys were having a yarn and there was a funny moment. And I was like, oh, who's this guy? You, not him. I knew who Shill was. And I was like, I like the vibe. And that's kind of how I usually analyze everything in life. And then, I've kind of gotten on a few of these chats recently and I've got a bit of a knack for talking. So I was like, I'll reach out.
100%, man. I'm so thankful for this. This is cool. This is cool. Because the goal I'm aiming for this podcast is, as we were talking over coffee, AI is this umbrella to this new technology. And I was talking to a mate and he was saying it's the same thing we're seeing with AI when software came out. Software was this umbrella, and now no one says I'm a software company. It's a lot more niche down to this. And we're seeing this with AI now. So I'd like to unpack a bit on your background, because a lot of people are tuning in, they're like, who's this AI guy? What does he stand for? What's his mission? So what do you actually do in the AI space?
Yeah, cool. At the moment, tell people what I think about what's happening. So I like to kind of share my opinion. Yeah. It's a strong one because it's largely privacy focused. And so, but from a day-to-day, we're trying to help companies integrate this technology in a way that actually returns on investment and doesn't just promise beautiful, fancy, wonderful things and then burn in flames, which has been a trend largely for the way that this has been rolled out in enterprises over the last few years, and a lot of the data suggests that. And so, one of the big things that we're trying to focus on is boring elements of business that are simple and repeating, or complex and repeating, but largely still driven by humans. And so if we think about this as tasks, there's lots of people that are doers, and they do a lot of tasks, repeating tasks every day. In a business context, this technology is very well placed to support taking over a large element of those tasks to allow that human to go do way more valuable, human-led, creative stuff. So we're very focused on assisting organizations implement this tech to unlock the potential of their humans.
I love that. Burning flames. Well, I haven't heard this phrase before.
So the project's burned down in flames. Sorry.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So there was a stat, would have been probably mid last year, from one of the big consulting companies globally, that almost 95% of AI projects or pilots never actually went anywhere after that first sort of test or iteration phase. So it has been a difficult thing to stick when it comes to implementation as a typical project within an organization. And it's probably because, and again, this is my perspective, people are rushing, people aren't strategic, it's been constantly evolving, and so sometimes people are like, oh, well, I don't want that anymore, this new cool thing's come out, because it's literally going on this crazed curve of capability, and that can be a distraction for people as opposed to actual success or return on investment. So it's about pause, it's about consideration, it's about where do we want to be in a few years' time. And really fundamentally it boils down to what is digital transformation, which has happened, like you say, with software and the internet. And there's been all these stages of that as it comes to like human life and business life. And we're just at another one.
Right. The 95% of AI projects, you were saying, fail the launch process. And you were saying that it's because of people are rushing into it.
One of the things, yeah.
With the crazy growth we have seen with AI, how are you learning and adapting with it if it's changing so quickly? Because who knows, by the time this episode comes out, there could be ChatGPT 7 doing AI podcasts with unicorns. Like, who knows?
Yeah, I love that.
How are you staying on top of this curve?
A constant use. Yeah, so one of the other things that we provide to the people we work with is a constant perspective on where they should be and what they should be focused on. I guess from an individual level, I've been using this since probably a month after ChatGPT launched. And so it was early on when it was kind of publicly available that I had that realization and was like, oof, this is going to be a thing.
Wow.
And then since then, it's just keep testing, keep trialing, keep experimenting, what's new, what's coming. And so... I can share the full story, but ultimately I reoriented my entire trajectory based on my analysis of that kind of moment. And so we've gotten to this point now where every day all I pay attention to is what's next, what has someone just launched, what's coming, what's the projections, or what new research is happening. I haven't watched the news or any of that sort of stuff for a very long time, but for me, I've always focused on the thing that I'm either involved in or interested in to get a good understanding of it and its evolution, and that's been no different. And so part of what we offer the clients we're working with is that perspective, because you'll get a call from someone or a message saying, hey, this new thing's out, what are we doing? It's like, well, you don't need to worry about that because you're doing these things. Let's just keep on track.
Good point. I want to dive into this story when you discovered the whole AI transformation, because I remember when ChatGPT 3 came out in 2022, and I was in year 11 at the time, and I'm like, hell yeah, no more religion assignments. So, of course, that went straight to good use. But where were you at in your life then in terms of your career and your business, and how did you see the opportunity with AI, and how did you transition into this?
Yeah,
because that's interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, my journey largely for the last decade or so has been coaching and consulting. So working with businesses, either one-on-one with a business owner or business owner group, to help them, execute strategy, all those sorts of things, or actually getting stuck in the weeds in an organization, working on transformation activities, operational efficiencies, all the different bits and pieces that are involved in running an organization. So that has been my kind of undertone the whole way through. On that journey, some interesting things popped up as opportunities, one of which is film production, and got to a point where after making and being involved in the first feature film, we decided to start a production company and have a proper crack, and we're able to raise some money and really go on a journey there. But that inflection point that you mentioned there for me was the experience you have using natural language to interact with technology. It was not possible before that moment. And so for me, there was the kind of, okay, I'm not a technical person, right? I can understand some basic code and bits and pieces, but I'm not someone who sits at a desk and codes all day. But to be able to generate even just like a HTML output by asking a question of a computer.
HTML. This is a new word for me.
Yeah, you're right. HTML is what is used to represent a website.
Okay.
Yeah, so the text or the code that sits behind a website is HTML. Yeah. So early on with ChatGPT, I'm pretty sure early on it was quite capable at least generating HTML. So you could ask it a question, and then it could generate that, and then you could use that outcome to go and create a simple website or something like that.
As in this is
doing coding. It's doing coding, right? That was the point at which it was doing coding. But it was doing coding without me needing to do anything, right? And then, I mean, a lot of people use it as question and answer and, think that it's just a Google and all that sort of stuff. But that moment for me was like, okay, I can ask questions of a piece of technology and get an outcome that otherwise a human would have to spend time, effort, and energy doing to deliver the same. Yeah. In the past, everything was just we type it with a computer.
Yeah.
And so that was a big moment for me where I was like, all right, this has the potential to reorient the entirety of our lives. And so I saw it and was like, all right, I'm a fan of rabbit holes. I've been down a few in my life. And this was the new one at that time.
Right.
And so it was, I wanted to keep on top of this. And that was where I just started investing time. So we were still on the journey of film production, and going down there was still doing the coaching and stuff.
So you were doing your film production full time and then learning this new skill on the side?
Yeah, it was. So film production was a good few years of life, alongside still some of the kind of coaching and consulting work, because it's very difficult to make a living doing long-form film and TV production, a consistent one anyway. But that was always a part of the plan for that business. And so, yeah, it was it was something that started to kind of weave itself into daily life, but then I started to see the value and the potential for it weaving itself into business life. And then that was the next inflection point on the journey, because I had a realization probably 6-8 months into using these tools that the same people that provided us social media were the same people that created a super intelligence that was now sitting in our pocket for free. And so that was a big aha moment for me, because back then ChatGPT was a personal tool that people just used for themselves.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a second, how does this evolve to impact everything? And then in my domain, how does it evolve to impact film, TV production, and then businesses?
From a privacy point of view?
Well, just generally.
Gotcha.
Privacy is definitely the undercurrent issue that I have talked to a lot over the last little while, because in my head there is so much value in the data, as has always been the case whenever someone is offering you any sort of software tool.
Yeah.
Social media is the best example of how humanity broadly accepted the infiltration of their lives for the exchange of communication tools, really. But then now these tools are so embedded in our lives that they can totally frame someone's paradigm through the algorithm without that person even knowing. And we just kind of accept that now. And so when I was using AI early on, I was like, oh, wow, this has so many sort of pathways it can go. Yes, the curious human, the considered human can use this as a phenomenal tool, but someone who doesn't appreciate or understand what it is could be completely trapped by it, or could be framed inside an echo chamber that they just can never escape from. So this is not me catastrophizing, this is me analyzing. And so back then I was like, all right, what's the evolution of this as it comes to our businesses? And that was the next inflection point that started the product that we've been developing within HAL, which is a way in which you can implement large language models privately and securely within your business, with a view to try to achieve the same outcomes as using the cloud or publicly available models.
What's your biggest fear for humanity with AI?
So I have 2 kids. I got a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old at the moment. And that is a fascinating place to be when it comes to education, their future, what the world might look like 5 years from now, let alone 50. I don't have a fear of what it can sort of create or do for us, because I think it is almost impossible at the moment for us to actually predict 50 years out because of technology like this.
Yeah.
I'm a scenarios kind of guy. And so there are scenarios where a tool like this and a technology like this can be used against humans, right? That's just a given. You could argue that many of the most successful films on Earth represent something like this. Many of the most successful Black Mirror episodes represent something like this. At the moment, that's just a set of assumptions, yeah? The same can be said about the other side of this. So, yes, there is the fear piece, but there is also the abundance piece. And a lot of the big voices that are sort of talking about this technology at the moment are leaning into the abundance piece, sort of suggesting
So what do you mean by the abundance piece?
So abundance being, as opposed to fear, where we're taken over by machines and there is just no freedom. Yeah. Abundance is the machines take over all the stuff that humans are doing that they probably shouldn't be, right? So when I say that, they believe there's going to be robots and automatic cars and you're not going to have to...
AI therapists.
Everything, right? Yeah. And so the human is then unlocked to their full potential, which might be, again, if you look at history, I love history, which might be that ability for someone to go back to being a 17-year-old Renaissance painter who's phenomenal and can do the most amazing things, or a sculptor or something like that, because they didn't have to want for anything else. Yeah, they might have been in a higher class level and they didn't have to go worry about work or anything like that. Back then, the AI was lower class levels doing all the work, but that person was unlocked to go pursue creativity or whatever it might be. And so some of the arguments being made around abundance are focused on just that. It's if this technology comes in and helps us to not have to do a lot of the doing work that does define people's existence, their jobs, their careers, all that sort of stuff.
And a few examples of this is what?
Anything across administrative landscapes, operational landscapes, loads and loads of any sort of like machinery work, those sorts of things, where a human is involved. A robot is being built at the moment to probably try to replace a lot of the machine work and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Or an AI-supported software solution is able to be implemented to take over spreadsheet to software system to spreadsheet to report, right? All of that a lot of the time is being done through data entry and all these sorts of things is where this technology is trying to get involved. And so 2 paths, right? Utopia, dystopia. Or some form of the middle ground, which is likely where we'll end up. That will probably come with pain, struggle, uncertainty, but also could result in like phenomenal new global systems and a pretty amazing life for people.
Oh man, I would say I'm more scared of what could happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, at the moment we're seeing the wars happening. And I remember seeing on the news that China have this massive robot army. And I remember being a kid and watching The Terminator, all of them. And it's becoming more and more real. Do you see that we're predicting here, but scenarios right now? Do you see that we could have a Terminator come up and end humanity? That's such a doom question, but
So we already have mutually assured destruction through the existence of nuclear weaponry and through many opposing forces around the world holding that technology. I would say we're on a race towards a different type of mutually assured destruction where, yes, at the moment, the world's factory, which is China, is leading in the creation of robotics, both in a warehouse to build a car through to potentially, autonomous anything that is able to enter a warfare scenario. So, I'm not an expert at all on military and defence and all those sorts of things, but I think it is still looking like a pathway towards that mutually assured destruction as opposed to someone holds all the power. Yeah, there are like key elements to this. Taiwan is a fascinating one, which is where all of like the semiconductor chips and that sort of stuff is largely produced. And you see the US at the moment investing a lot in trying to get their own production happening, and they're acknowledging the potential, like you say, of the threat that someone else holds more power than somebody else in the world. But that dynamic is just the evolution of human history.
Yeah.
And so sitting with fear around that and where that takes us, in my view, doesn't help anyone, especially individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the reason I stopped watching the news and consuming much of that content many, many, many moons ago is because it is steeped in just that. It is steeped in fear because it wants you as an individual to feel like that is on your doorstep. When in reality, it most of the time is very, very far away. Yes, it is impacting people around the world. I'm not a fan of war, personally. We won't get into that just on this podcast. But it is also the reason we are here today, all of us, right? The history that has set up humanity from the Mongols to Alexander the Great to everything in between has come from conflict, has come from conquest. And so if we think that utopia is just going to happen overnight, it's probably not likely to just be flick of a switch and we're there.
Yeah.
But I would also argue that the dystopia is also probably not likely in the same way, because at the moment we've lived through this. It might happen, whether you go back to like the nuclear situations of the mid-1900s and thereabouts, where everyone was, again, in fear. The bomb's going to drop on us all and everything ends. It hasn't happened yet. Yeah. So that path through the middle is where I think we go. And yes, it will be uncomfortable for some. Yes, it might be phenomenal for others. But I think that is just the constant of human evolution.
The path through the middle. I'm trying to visualize this. You have a better understanding on what this looks like? Because I remember reading up, it was, again, a news article on how not the physical AI, but the online AI, like the large language models like ChatGPT is destroying our creativity. Would you agree with that?
No, not at all.
No?
No. So I like to look at these tools as amplification of our intelligence. So for me, that's what AI stands for. Yeah, they're tools that help us amplify our intelligence. Yes, they can trap people. Yes, there are many cases when they have led to people ending their own lives and doing all sorts of things. And I would argue that the kind of trajectory that has established the large language models we use at the moment, especially in a personal sense, is flawed through bias and many other things. But I don't believe that this is a stifle of human creativity. I actually think, and I sit more in the abundance space, where, and I use my first example of my experience with it to generate some HTML code, people were hamstrung in their ability to achieve any kind of coding output or any kind of technical creation without the knowledge of how to code. And now they aren't. Now you can literally talk to a tool and build a website. You can talk to a tool and build a piece of software. And it's not to say that you are better than the expert who understands the code and can actually, modify it and adjust and so on and so forth. But that is a phenomenal creativity unlock. Yeah. And I shared something recently on LinkedIn about this, where over the last couple of months, because of Claude Code, Codex, Cowork, some of these tools that are in the market, people's, weekend ideas are now turning into a product, turning into an app, turning into something that they otherwise would have never gotten to creating because they needed a team and all this sort of stuff around it. So that is creativity unlocked. Yeah. And then if you look at the film production, the TV world, that sort of side of things, where there is a big battle at the moment around IP, around ownership, around what it takes to create ultimately what will be a long-form piece of content. So you made the comment about a unicorn podcast. Right now, us talking like this, the end result of what you edit and create could turn into two unicorns talking to each other with technology that exists today. There is a great avatar creation tool called HeyGen, and if we wanted to, we could launch this with the both of us as unicorns.
We already know this is going to be a short snippet.
And so that is here, yeah? And it is coming to our phones and our devices where augmentation of our reality is like rapid.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's one way that this goes. Again, you could argue that that's going to unlock phenomenal creativity, right? Yes, it could also be used by bad actors to do things, but also it could let people create crazy stuff, right? And then if you look at long-form film production, which is obviously something I've also tracked quite closely because of my involvement in the past, that is being massively disrupted because you can now talk to the same sorts of like slightly different type of model, but you can talk to it and generate not just a static image, but a moving image, and now a moving image with sound, and now a moving image with a voice. So it is rapidly evolving in the same way. But again, what has previously been sort of held in the hands of, I'm not going to call them an elite because it's an odd word for it, but like a set of expertise that is, Hollywood and film production and all that sort of stuff, is going to be at the fingertips of 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds with crazy ideas, or 50-year-olds and 70-year-olds with things that they were never able to generate or create. And so that democratization almost of creativity is also what this can present, which I'm not saying is all good, right? There are and will always be bad actors on these journeys, yeah. But maybe naively, I'm a believer that most humans are good. Like fundamentally, we are good. Most people I interact with, even if we have literally polar opposite views on things, I'll be able to sit down with and have a chat, a conversation.
Just listen, yeah.
Just like life, we're going through it, yeah? So I think that path in the middle is an unlock of all sorts of potential and maybe, ideally, trends towards abundance. But I'm not going to say that there isn't the risk that it goes the other way.
How are you teaching your kids to prepare for this? Because, oh man, it was last night. I was scrolling through Instagram Reels and I saw this video of this old man and his dog. He had to bring his dog in for adoption because he couldn't look after it. He had 4 months to live. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, what the fuck? This is so sad. His partner, a wife, died to cancer. He was going through cancer. And it just didn't seem right. And I'm like, why is this being recorded for starters? So that was my first alarm bell. But I actually believed it. I felt emotion, which is scary. And I looked at the comments. There were half of the comments saying, "Oh my God, I'm in tears." And the other half saying, "This is AI. I hope this isn't real." And at that point, I'm like, whoa, I just got manipulated then. And it's getting to a point where you can't tell. But how are you teaching your kids on how to prepare for this?
So curiosity is the fundamental element of human existence that allows us to sit with the ability to critique things. Yeah. Yep. And so for me, I am very focused on raising 2 curious humans. And that curiosity allows them to analyze situations, right? My daughter is learning about situational awareness at the moment. To have situational awareness, you need to be a curious person, right? You need to be able to walk down a strange street and pay attention to what's going on around you, or be in a shopping centre and figure out, well, what about this and what about that? Not for fear, but just to show that you are aware, show that you are, shall we say, awake, a word people use these days in different ways. So for me, curiosity is the first thing. I'm a pretty traditional guy in terms of my value set. And so a big part of that for me is EQ over IQ. So I'm obviously challenging my kids to be the best they can be from a learning perspective.
What's EQ?
Like emotional intelligence.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
So for my kids, it is, can they shake someone's hand properly? Do they show respect to their elders? What are some of the foundational human interaction elements that are being rapidly lost in a society where people just stare at a screen for half the day? And so for me, they will be actually the things that rise above when we get into a world where technology is like integrated into everything. Human experience, human interaction will actually start to rise to the top again, because that's the sort of beings that we are, right? Yes, people may want to go and sit on a couch and chuck on a headset and disappear all day, and that's fine, that's their decision. But a lot of people are going to, and I think we're already seeing this in some of the ways that younger generations are interacting with technology or disconnecting from technology, they want human first. They want interaction with others. Yeah. We have a loneliness epidemic for a reason, right? People are not interacting at a human level. So for me, curiosity and EQ sit really, really high on that list of things I'm trying to impart on the kids. And
how do you teach curiosity?
You need to reflect. They're a reflection of you, so they have to see you holding that curiosity. We made the decision this year to homeschool my oldest daughter.
Nice.
And so she's now learning at home, and my wife is driving that phenomenally. And my daughter is having the best time, like absolutely thriving. And so it was a result of her feedback, my daughter's feedback about the schooling system. We had a great school. She was in a great school. She was broadly enjoying it. But she was just sharing how that impacted her, and it was very interesting. And so we had that conversation, and it's kind of ripped my wife of her freedom because that's just
it's like 2 full-time jobs in one.
The reality of having the humans that in the modern world go to school with you every day.
I definitely feel that. I think that's why you've also gone with the homeschooling road, is school suppresses that curiosity. Because if everyone is curious, then you have independent minds. When you have independent minds, obviously that's going against the grain. That's friction to what is the narrative society is pushing, which, man, a rabbit hole.
So how you said it, not me.
Yeah. Oh no. If I vanish tomorrow, guys, you know why.
Yeah. No. We think very similarly.
Yeah.
And it is not. I think the key thing for me about that system is it is structured the way it is because of the way society is currently structured, and so that disruption that comes from the technology that we're really talking about today. Could be very severe to those that are party to that system and don't appreciate that there is this emerging technology that will challenge, potentially, their very existence.
Right. So the curiosity factor, if I want to be more curious and aware on what's going on, which I definitely feel I need to be, and I'm sure if you're listening to this, you can relate. How do I become more curious on what's going on? You were saying reflection. Like,
yeah, that's one
what
thing.
does this look like for you on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, cool. I mean, for me, I have a kind of my own little protocol of how I start a day, what I do, how I go through life. But I would say the first step, just to come back to curiosity, is to start asking questions. And so people don't realize that if they start using ChatGPT or Claude, most of the time when they start using it, they're asking questions. And for the first time in their life, a lot of them are actually asking questions and using it to ask questions that start to move beyond how you would say ask a question of Google. And so these tools can actually start to trigger and breed some curiosity in us, right? And over the last few years, that's been a requirement of how we use these tools. What's happened in the last probably this year, I would say, what's happened with how they've evolved is the tool is now getting good enough that it is starting to assume what your question is going to be. And I see risk in that because, again, people are then going to sort of outsource the thinking piece back to the tool. So I'll use an example where I wanted to build a financial model, just a sort of template structure of a financial model. And in the past, I would...
When you say financial model...
So in business, if you want to go get like a loan or investment, you've got to put together a spreadsheet which has all the data and says, I'm going to do these things and I'm going to project some success and we're going to... that's the financial model.
Okay, so you're getting this AI to build that for you to present.
I wanted to get the AI to build the template spreadsheet for me from scratch to test whether it could, capability-wise. But the key piece for me in this process was in the past when asking AI to build tools like this or just anything really, you had to give it a bunch of context, direct it, sort of prompt it in a way that made it do a bit of work, start thinking, that sort of stuff. I started this journey using a new tool and I didn't have to do any of that anymore. I gave it the initial prompt and the structure and then it turned around and immediately said, can you answer these questions for me? And it presented a few options on the screen. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. The options it presented were solid and were pretty aligned to where I wanted to head. But there was only a few of them. There was like 2 or 3. In my head, the human element here is what else is possible, right? So that curiosity factor, again, is about being free from a trapped or subscribed set of steps or a trajectory that you should be going on. Yeah. And so if the technology is now getting to a point where it's good enough to effectively dictate to you the steps you should take to get to an outcome, that's interesting. Yes, that's efficiency gains and all that sort of stuff. But a curious mind will question whether what it's given them is actually the best outcome. Someone who doesn't hold that curiosity is like, oh, hell yeah, I haven't had to think and it's given me what I needed. And so I have seen the evolution of this to then be able to challenge that curiosity. And so for me, it is so important that we hold on to that as humans because it is the catalyst to our creativity. It's the catalyst to invention. It's all of those sorts of things. And I sit with these tools as just that. They are tools. They shouldn't replace that.
Right. So when for example, I use ChatGPT to help me create my business plan and niche down and all that. The way I prompted ChatGPT was ask me, this is what I have so far. So this is me sitting at my desk, brainstorming, word dumping, all this, then presenting this to ChatGPT, being like, ask me 10 crucial questions, which I haven't considered yet, that you can then create a high-quality professional business plan. And then ChatGPT asked me these questions. And it was making me think in that sense instead of me prompting it being like, create me a business plan. Is that what you're talking about with reframing from using AI as ChatGPT in this sense as a resource to a tool?
Yeah. So what you've done is great because you may not have the knowledge to ask those questions of yourself to get that outcome. And these tools hold a lot of that now, which is awesome. My point is when you got to the finished product, did you go, wow, great, that looks exactly what I was expecting and I'll just go with it? Or did you ask to personally, or did you start to personally interrogate what those outcomes were? Try to understand why it gave you the things it gave you.
Interesting.
Yeah, because people are going, I hope that's good enough, and maybe that's great,
looks good,
or it looks good, or and so the ability to further ensure that what it's providing you is accurate, correct, whatever it might be, requires that curiosity. But it's also essential, because what people don't understand about large language models is they're probability engines. They don't know what truth is. And so truth from them is, I'm going to weight your request, literally word by word or chunk by chunk, and based on my weighting of that request, I'm going to give you my best guess at an answer to it based on all the training that I've had. And so the tool itself is attempting to provide you the most accurate response, but it is not necessarily what can be defined as truth. And this is why hallucination is such a big thing. This is why they're working hard on longer context windows. They're trying to evolve the technology to improve accuracy of outcome. But what it does not know is truth, right? And so when people start to accept everything it tells them, it leads, and it can lead to really interesting or tragic outcomes, which is why certain people have gone down that path where that echo chamber is so strong that they do something like take their own life.
Yeah.
If we come back to, like, say, a business environment where there is, like, critical data involved, and all of a sudden people are just chucking it into one of these tools and going, yes, sweet, I got the great outcome that I needed, the issues that are happening in the world, like, you know, Deloitte and some of these big organizations are being found out because they've generated complete nonsense in a report.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and then they've given it to a customer, and the customer's like, this is nonsense. This doesn't even relate to anything. Or lawyers. Like, there's so many cases around the world where there's, like, made-up precedents, made-up cases, all this sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so all that comes from, again, this either outsourcing of our thinking or this lack of curiosity to further interrogate what's generated, what's presented.
So if you were prompting, let's talk about ChatGPT specifically, because a lot of people use it, pretty much everyone, even my grandma's on it now. How would you, obviously depending on what your outcomes are, but the framework on how would you prompt chat to get the result you're after? It changes for everyone, but how would you personally ask the questions, provide the resources? Is there a framework you follow?
There are many different frameworks.
Yeah.
My first thing is I wouldn't use ChatGPT. Sorry. No, that's fine. You can.
Yeah. Why?
I stopped using it about 2 years ago. I wasn't aligned.
Interesting.
I wasn't aligned with the trajectory of the organization, shall we say, and my analysis on that back at that time, and also saw it having probably the most significant bias in terms of its training set.
Wow.
And so. Basically I started experimenting with other tools and landed on a few other tools that I liked and I use.
What tools do you use?
I was just going to say that's always evolving too.
Oh, okay, true, yeah.
So for me, again, this whole how do you keep up with things, it's about experimentation. It's about understanding what's next and then being able to go, right, cool, well, that should plug in here or that should plug in there because it's generating a better outcome, a more valuable outcome for me. At the moment, from the public tools, I've been a user of Claude probably from Anthropic the most over the last couple of years. And Gemini is what I use for sort of deep research because that's got the kind of Google data set sitting behind it. And then there's a set of like local models that I use as a part of the platform, obviously, that we've developed. The thing about local models is they're probably, or they have been inherently probably 6 months or so behind the kind of big foundational models in terms of their capabilities, but that's shrinking. And so open source models are getting closer and closer and closer at being very, very capable. And the limiting factor at the moment there is hardware. So you need a decent sort of computer or setup to be able to run larger models to compete. So without getting too technical, the ease of accessing a Claude or a ChatGPT is the reason they're leading the pack. But again, their business model could be challenged. Open source is catching up. All these different factors at play.
So Claude is an LLM?
Yeah, so Claude is the name of Anthropic's. It's probably the best way to describe it is the name of their interface. The large language models that sit within Claude also have different names. So at the moment, Opus 4.6 is their most capable model.
Gotcha.
And they've got Sonnet and they've got a few others. And so they have sort of other models that sit within Claude, which is the interface. Yeah. And so OpenAI have ChatGPT, but then they have different GPTs. And overnight, just before, obviously, this chat, whenever it comes out. 5.4 is what they have just released as their newest foundation model. And so there's this kind of constant race to put the best model in market, to be like, I'm the best, you should use our tools. And herein lies distraction, right? But also opportunity. And so for me, it's like, cool, be curious, experiment, test, but don't flip your entire workflow because you feel like one or two things worked better. Run, A/B tests, run things in parallel, that sort of stuff, before making drastic decisions. So, now, do you want to go back to prompting?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
because I didn't answer that question.
Yeah. So with going back to the prompt, then.
Yeah.
Chat GPT specific. Well, you haven't been using it. So.
No, that's all right. It'll be similar to most. So they will probably release a new kind of cookbook, which is like the way that they describe how you should use their tools.
Yep.
They usually do when they release new models. But for anyone that doesn't quite grasp that at the moment, the 2 or 3 key steps to hold to get, let's say, more accuracy in terms of the outcome. But again, it wouldn't necessarily be what I describe as truth. Persona. So can you tell it what it should be or who it is in terms of what it's doing? You then have the knowledge of the outcome that you want to create. So this is where expertise becomes valuable, because if you are an expert and you've previously created a whole lot of these things before, you know what you want it to look like. So an understanding or knowledge of that outcome is really, really, really important. And then that flows through to context. So the context is evidence, prior versions of. Can you upload some files? Can you say, I want it to look like this, or I need it to reference these things? And so that is where you give it knowledge, focused knowledge, ideally, for it to spend...
Focused knowledge.
So you want it to focus on that knowledge, right?
Oh, gotcha.
If you just go, hey, I need a business plan, it's going to go and use its billions of parameters on its decision tree, and it's going to pick a path to hopefully find some form of context around what a business plan is, and then generate an outcome based on that. Whereas if you were to go to the government website and get their template business plan, you then can go, here is the template that I'd like this business plan to look like. And so you've immediately provided it context to get a more accurate outcome.
So now it knows what to base everything from.
Yes.
Good point. Yeah, okay.
But it's not always to say it will. Yeah? And this is probably one of my favorite challenges that you face with these tools at the moment is they are relatively sycophantic. They want to be your best friend and your helper, but at the same time, they casually think they're smarter than you. And so you will frequently get...
the yes man.
Yeah, it is, yeah. But you will frequently also get an outcome from them that is like, what about this instead? And they're kind of throwing different things at you or challenging your thinking. And it's fascinating because they can't think. They don't have the capacity to think, in my opinion. They are just processing and going, this is my view on the best possible response to your query. But now they're kind of being coded into this language in terms of how they respond, where it almost insinuates expertise and it insinuates that they know better than what you might know. And for a lot of people, that then turns into acceptance because they're querying against something they don't actually know, right? And then that acceptance means there is then lacking or less interrogation around the output, and then acceptance that that's correct. And then we get into this trap.
Yeah, of then being accepted to this tool that...
Well, yeah, potentially...
you're not curious enough.
Yeah. Well, again, you can see the thread here. So for me, it is a challenge probably to people to, yes, provide context, to know what your outcome might be, to kind of really structure the way in which you engage to define what you'd like to achieve. But at the same time, I'm not saying don't just iterate and experiment. But if you are iterating and experimenting, make sure you still sit in a position to make a decision around quality, around accuracy, all those sorts of things when it comes to the output that it generates.
I love that. Such a good point. To summarize and conclude this amazing conversation, I've gotten so much from this. I've taken some amazing notes. What's been the best advice someone's ever told you?
Ooh. I probably throw it to my mum, who many moons ago said the best way to start your day is with an attitude of gratitude. And that's probably been a very defining kind of part of my journey where no matter what it is we may have, if you are grateful for it, you then don't end up wanting, the old covet this from somebody else, or I'm jealous, or I have envy, or all those sorts of things come from a lack of an ability to appreciate what we have. Probably start life or start every day with an attitude of gratitude.
I love that. How old were you when she told you this?
I would have been like early teens, I think. Probably from when I remember that happening. Yeah.
Unreal. I also got this card game.
Okay.
It's a card game with hundreds of deep questions.
Awesome.
I want you to choose the final question for yourself, and I'll answer it as well.
Okay.
As well as the one for the next guest I interview on the podcast.
I love this. Is this a new thing?
Yes.
Hey, let's go. Anyone?
God, this is a magic trick. Pick a card, any card.
Do I? I don't want to. I want you to ask me without me knowing.
I feel like this one's such a good question for you. What are you pretty sure you could never get tired of?
Ooh, learning.
Learning.
Yeah.
Why? That's a good answer.
Yeah, learning. I will never get tired of learning. It is literally my favorite thing to do. I think, again, steeped in curiosity, I constantly yearn to learn something more, something else, something new. One of my favorite things to do is talk to someone who knows so much about nothing that I know about. I think it is just kind of foundational to staying young. I think it's fundamental to progress. For me, learning.
That's really interesting. I think I would answer it the same, if not just the word progress or execution. You would never get tired of executing an idea, because then with that comes, as you're saying, the learning, the progress of the end result. But Josh, this conversation's been unreal. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. And I now have a clearer understanding on the risks, the dangers that are coming forward in this day and age, as well as solutions on how I can move forward with clarity, as well as spread the word to people that mean most to you on staying curious. I love that.
Cool.
Josh, thank you.
Cheers, bro. Appreciate it.